All right, then, here we go. It's time for the Beast. And I'm talking, of course, about not only the Beast Ice. Of course, what I'm really talking about is Milwaukee's Best. This is Milwaukee's Best Ice, which is regarded as an awful beer by a lot of people. And quite a few people that I know actually said Milwaukee's Best anything is like the worst anything. It's the worst beer ever. I can tell you right now, as someone who's had Milwaukee's Best and Milwaukee's Best Ice a few times, not a ton of times, it is not, in my opinion, the worst. The worst still is that wild blue nonsense that was just the most disgusting beer ever. And actually, a case of that stuff is like 40 bucks. Can you believe that? Anyway, 5.9% ABV. This is an ice beer, so it's a little higher on the ABV. And when you have the ice brewed cheap beers, you get the higher ABV, but you get an even harsher taste than its regular American adjunct counterpart. So we got that to look forward to with this beer as well. You can get a case of this, 24 cans, for really cheap, like 10 bucks, 11 bucks, depending on where you're going. So there you have it. Referred to as Beast Ice, the Yeti as well. It's called the Yeti. And it says it's carefully ice brewed. It gets a 50 on Beer Advocate, and it doesn't even get a rating on Rate Beer. It gets a 1 in the style, but I didn't see an overall rating on this beer. So apparently it's either so low that it didn't generate a rating. I think that's what the case is, because how's there not going to be a lot of ratings or enough ratings for this beer here? It's owned, of course, by Sab Miller. And it's funny because Milwaukee really doesn't have many good beers. Milwaukee's known for being the brewer capital, Miller Lite and all that nonsense, but the quality of beers are not that good. However, this beer, ironically, is not the best that Milwaukee has to offer. So that's that. Enough slamming this. I don't feel like I slammed it too much. For what it is. There are people that have far worse things to say. I did say it's not the worst beer ever. So we are going to open up this can and pour. Yes, I'm going to pour Best Ice into a glass just to have a look at it. I have no problem with anyone just pounding these down by the can. This is the American adjunct style, which I think is the only style where you can basically drink it out of a can or a bottle without pouring it into a glass. So as we pour it into this pint glass, or shaker, whatever the heck you want to call it. Kind of a golden color. Not a bad look to it. Bubbles forming on the outside. I think this glass was oxidized a little bit, so you're probably seeing some splotchiness here on the side. Very frothy, carbonated looking head that's quickly dissipating. I'm going to say it went from about 3/4 of a finger, now it's down to about a 1/4 of a finger, if that, of head. See-through. I can see the camera recording as I look through the glass right here. Very watery looking. Not very much character to it. And that might be the first time I've ever actually poured a Milwaukee's Best Ice out into a glass. So let's get the aroma. The aroma of Milwaukee's Best Ice. Some people would call it the odor of Milwaukee's Best Ice. Yeah, definitely getting that corn, rice smell that you'll get from the American adjuncts, but also with a bit of a more malty kind of smell to it. Molasses kind of. It has a little more of a depth of aroma. Maybe that's because of the higher ABV than your normal American adjunct. So let's get the taste now of Milwaukee's Best Ice, and we'll see how we do here. Yeah, like a candied kind of aftertaste. When I get it at the front of the tongue, there's not really much there at the front of the tongue. Kind of a light kind of sensation, and then when it gets to the back of the tongue, that's where the malt kind of hits you a little more. Where where the harshness and the core and the fake stuff that you get from American Adjuncts kind of hits you in the back of the throat here. Yeah, many people will not like the aftertaste of this beer. It doesn't go down quite as smooth as some of the other somewhat quaffable American Adjuncts. This one's a little bit harsh at the end, and maybe that's why they call it the Beast. I don't know. This is a chugging lawnmower beer, a beer that you just want to, you don't want to spend any time on, a beer that you don't want to feel guilty about drinking if you need to drink it fast, like you would a craft beer. There are other beers that are so much better. Hams, for example. I keep getting a lot of hits on my Hams video. Thanks to everyone who's contributed and watched and commented on that. I mean, I'm not advertising any of this, obviously, and it's amazing that there's so many fans of Hams out there. I'm going to tag this Hams because I mentioned Hams and see how many hits this gets. This is a beer that just, I would pass on, but it's not awful. I mean, it's not undrinkable. There are only a few beers that I've ever had that I consider undrinkable. And of course, I mentioned the Wild Blue, and I'm sure the Wild Red's probably the same way. And although I haven't had that yet, kind of not wanting to do that at all, but maybe one day, who knows. And the other one is that Sam Adams wit beer that I just couldn't. So god awful. What an awful decision by Sam Adams to brew beer like that. Those are two beers that I can think of, and there may be more that just to me are drain pours, absolute drain pours, even when they're actually fresh. This one I don't think is a drain pour for me. I can drink it. I'm pretty open. So we're gonna go ahead and give Milwaukee's Best Ice, and I'm taking the style of American Adjunct into consideration compared to others of the style. It's style that I'm rating this on. So don't say, hey, you gave this IPA a 5, and you're giving this awful beer 5.5, which is, by the way, what I'm giving it, a 5.5. I'm giving Milwaukee's Best Ice a 5.5. So none of that going on. Just understand that I'm comparing it to other American Adjuncts if that might be your style. So I'm going to go ahead and give 5.5 to Milwaukee's Best Ice. I'd pass on it if there's other options, which there are always other options anywhere you go in the country with this style of beer. That's about it. Milwaukee's Best Ice, 5.5. Thanks.